Hello, Rose. How are you?
I'm good. I was like, do I have time to get my Rocky earrings on?
Just enough time. Just enough time.
Just one. So I'll just like point this way the whole
There you
time.
go. We'll take it. Well, welcome everyone to another CIQ webinar. We appreciate you joining. This week we're talking about cloud, right, Rose?
We are talking about clouds specifically around Apptainer. So this is very exciting. And I think we're going to have to do a little explanation of what exactly this means. But I'm very excited. I think Forrest is going to join us.
Oh,
There
looky
he
there.
is.
And
And
Brian
Brian and
and
Dave. Woo
Dave.
And the
woo.
whole crew.
We got the
Powerhouse.
whole crew. Perfect. Well, welcome, guys. I'm going to go around and do introductions real quick. I think you've all been on here enough that people probably know who you are, but for those who are new, we appreciate you joining. Let's introduce ourselves. Forrest.
Whoops, there we go. Hit the mute button.
Wrong button.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Forrest Burt. I'm an HPC systems engineer here at CIQ. I've been with CIQ for about 2 years. I come out of the academic HPC sphere, where I worked kind of with academic HPC and the national lab sphere of that type of thing. So excited to be here on the webinar today and excited to be talking about Apptainer.
Great. Thank you, Forrest. Dave, welcome back. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too, Zane. Good to see Rose, everybody. I did not have time to put my my Rocky earrings in. I apologize.
Oh,
Yeah.
slacker.
I'm Dave Godlove. I've got a long history as a research scientist, and I used to work at BioWolf at the NIH. And I've been around the Apptainer community for quite some time. I do, participate in a lot of these webinars. And I'm a solutions architect at CIQ.
Thank you, Dave. Brian.
Hey everyone, Brian Fenn here. I'm a solutions architect here at CIQ. My background's in HPC administration and architecture, and I have workflow experience across various verticals of science, from automotive to aerospace to genomics. Happy to be back on this webinar and excited to see the demos that Dave and Forrest have prepared.
Thank you, Brian. I see, Brian, you didn't get your Rocky earrings on either, so I guess we just missed out.
They're in the mail, guys. They're in the mail.
They're in the mail.
We'll get you little clip-on ones. They'll be cute.
Maybe. So, Rose, it's been a while since you've introduced yourself. Why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Oh, yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Rose Stein. I work at CIQ. Zane is actually my boss. Yes, he does manage people. And so we help on the, really making sure that people who are wanting our services are able to get the services. So we're kind of like the in-between, right? They can call it sales. Some people really like jive with that word, and other people don't really. But I mean, someone's got to do it, right? Somebody has to take the customer and bring them into the company and make sure they're getting all the incredible work that Forrest and Brian and Dave are doing. So we're kind of like the in-between people there. And it's very exciting. It is like the other day we had a customer, a potential customer at first. Now they are a customer, and we were having a conversation with them about what it is that we provide and what it is that we do. And the guy was just kind of like silent for a couple minutes. And then he said, "You just solved all my problems."
Those are good conversations.
It was such a good conversation. So this is actually one of those things. Forrest, I hope that you are willing. I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I would love for you just to share like your excitement of a story that you shared with me around, I think it was like 2019, you said it was, when you first kind of discovered containers and what you were thinking about them. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, can't hear you.
Oh, you broke his mic.
Dang.
Now you're on mute.
How about now?
There we are.
Okay, perfect. That was odd. Yeah, Rose, if I'm thinking of the same story, the kind of like idea containerization, using that as like a system, yeah. This is obviously an idea that has been, massively expanded on, and architected and was being thought of in places and other places at the same time. But I remember shortly after getting into containers, um, one of the biggest things I started to think about with them was the ability to do kind of similar to what we've expanded on at CIQ with like the fuzzball side of things, but just like in my kind of very new to HPC, very new to Linux type way. Um, I just remember like getting so excited about what people could do with containers and how it improved module file systems and improved what I was doing with building software. My users were able to utilize containers, like I said, instead of module files. I was able to build and deploy software a lot easier. I was suddenly just like, wow, Singularity, which is what it was at the time, but Apptainer, this is incredible to be able to actually work with the system in this level and to be able to do away with some of these outdated paradigms that were very annoying to have to deal with as a sysadmin. So I just remember like sketching out at the time this little like, CM shared containers, different type of architecture, which was, like I said, pretty crude for the time. But yeah, it's very cool to have seen at CIQ, especially with like the release of Fuzzball, those type of ideas. Like I said, that other people were thinking of those at the same time, and that containers are kind of the way that whole sphere is going. So I've been very pleased to see, like I said, other people were thinking of that, and that we've been able to expand on those type of concepts so far at CIQ with like Fuzzball Orchestrate and our different kind of container-based paradigms like that. With all the work that we do around Apptainer, with what we've done with Werewolf, it's very cool just to continue to see containers, especially the Apptainer sphere, playing such a huge role in the future of HPC.
Thanks for the story, Forrest. So I know I feel like we bring this up every time, but it's interesting to me, and I want to make sure that everybody that is watching this, especially for the first time, that's new to Apptainer and Singularity, and I'm going to ask you this question, Dave. Can you kind of point out, when we talk about containers, a lot of people think of Docker. Can you just high level real quick, tell us kind of the differences between Apptainer and Docker and why?
Yeah. I'll try to be quick about it, like you said. So the history, and I talk about this a lot, the history of Apptainer really is that people started to come to HPC sysadmins and staff scientists like me and like Greg and like other folks around 2015 or so, and started saying, hey, I need you to install Docker on our HPC systems. And so we found that for security purposes, pretty much at the time, Docker was not up to snuff to be installed on an HPC system. It doesn't have a security model that works well with a multi-tenant system, basically. So you got multiple users, and some of them don't have root access. Then it doesn't really work to install Docker. So Greg thought, well, I would like to design a container platform that works with multi-tenant systems. And so while I'm at it, why don't I just go ahead and make it as HPC friendly as possible? Because I'm targeting HPC people. So that's one of the big differences right off the bat, is that the security model is different. Like the security, like the architecture is different at a really fundamental level. And it was targeted specifically to HPC users. So it's got a lot of like HPC goodness associated with it. And then the other big difference, which is something that we're going to be talking about, I think, a lot today, is the format, the container format. So, it's my understanding, and I've repeated this, whether it's correct or not, several times, but I think that one of the big reasons, so of course, Apptainer used to be called Singularity. And one of the big reasons that Greg named it Singularity was because the single file format, the containers come in. So instead of having, a whole bunch of tarballs that come in and have to be stitched together as layers into a single coherent file system at runtime, you've got a single image file that's wrapped up in something that we call a SIF, a Singularity image format file. And, that is how your container it comes in, and you use it, and you can move it around and do things like that. So that's a really, really big difference. And it's, something we'll be talking about today, I think, as we talk about cloud support.
So I know the topic today is cloud, and we're talking about Singularity. How does that play with the cloud? Why is that important?
So when it comes to Apptainer in the cloud, being able to utilize the common registry solutions and stuff like that that are provided by the different clouds out there gives you the ability to, if you've already got a bunch of architecture. We found in our investigation for this webinar that, Apptainer works on most of the major clouds. And so being able to utilize these cloud container registries alongside your existing architecture, or to supplement, if you're not up in the cloud a ton, to be able to bring container registries to just kind of in general your lab or whatever, if you haven't already had them. Being able to utilize all of these cloud registries for Apptainer just makes it really easy to push containers, pull containers in the same way that you would imagine with kind of the Docker-based sphere of things. And yeah, like I said, it really gives you a lot of ability to move around between different clouds, between different architectures, and redistribute those Apptainers that you might have out there very easily.
So I think that we're just about ready to see it, right? Talking about it is nice and beautiful and wonderful, but we want to see it. But just before that, I know that people get really excited about containers, just like you did back in 2019 for us when you first found containers. You were like, whoa, cool. Like the story that Forrest told me, he was like, and I got my whiteboard and I was there. And I imagine him with like a pen in each hand, like doing things like this and like just being amazing, right? And like figuring out all the things that you can do with containers. And some people might not already be in the mix. So I know that is the Slack channel, like the Apptainer Slack channel, like the best way to kind of begin to get involved and jump in and ask questions and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great place to hop in at.
Okay.
If anyone else has any other suggestions, definitely feel free to throw them out there. I think the Apptainer website has kind of a little listing of all of the apptainer.org is kind of a listing of all of the different community spaces and things like that are associated with Apptainer. But yeah, at the moment, a lot of the activity is centered around that Slack. So feel free to join us and
Awesome.
It is very well
Jeffrey,
documented.
sorry?
I will say it's very well documented. And there are a lot of people that contribute to that documentation, and we really appreciate it. But if you look at it pretty close, Dave's written a lot of it.
Dave's the man. Go find him in there.
I was just going to jump into and say that another thing that I wanted to highlight for people who are new to containers. This kind of came up. So we were just at a couple of us were just at the Rocky Mountain Advanced Computing Consortium, or RMAC, meeting, and this came up several times when we were talking to people. So if you're new to containers, if you're not really, maybe you're kind of newish to Linux, or maybe you're not very newish, but you've not used it extensively, beyond just like, SSH and SCP and, moving files around and stuff like that. If you haven't used Linux extensively, you might be a little intimidated to get into containers because of that. And I want to say that you should really feel the total opposite way. Containers are a great way to learn Linux. And this is one of the cool things about containers that new folks who are just new to the area find, is that a lot of times when you're in your Linux system and you're messing around, there's stuff that you're kind of scared to mess with or touch because, you become root and then you start doing stuff and, maybe I'm going to mess something up. And, but if you're in a container, delete files, mess stuff up, try to install things in weird ways, do experiments and break your containers. And this is a great way to just learn Linux and to get your feet under you and try and start to get a feel for how things work and, what works and what doesn't, and so on. So I think that don't be intimidated if you're kind of new to Linux, because that's actually, a great time to start learning about containers.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And just to be clear too, the Apptainer is its own thing and it's totally open source. So Dave, obviously you work at CIQ, but you also spend some off time helping and supporting the open source community, which is Apptainer. So when he says go and grab it and play with it, go do that, right? It's all open source. It's available for you to go. And CIQ as a company, we provide an opportunity for people to have professional support on top of just grabbing the the open source files and, and playing with them if they want something actually built in a specific way or any of that kind of stuff. So sometimes people ask about just like the clarity of what that means. So thank you for that. I think we're ready. Man, who's first?
All right, everyone. So yeah, so like I said, this is Cloud Day with Apptainer. We are just going to be going over how to use Apptainer with the various different cloud container registries and stuff like that are out there. Just to situate everyone a little bit more, a registry in this case is a place that you can put a container and store it up in the cloud, and then be able to pull that back out with your credentials for that registry. They are essentially, registry is essentially the de facto term for container storage. They are more or less synonymous in the cloud. You might see that we also talk about artifact registries, which are sometimes a little bit different. An artifact registry is sometimes meant to hold other artifacts than just containers, like Helm charts, things like that. So I'll make the distinction when it's there, but just so everyone knows, registry is more or less just kind of like a container storage type thing. So most major clouds out there in different places offer some way to do a container registry. They offer some type of solution around that. What we're going to be going through today, like I said, is showing how this interfaces with a few of the major clouds. So we're going to go over GCP, AWS, Azure, GitLab. Dave will be doing Docker Hub to show how SIFs are supported there these days. And then we're going to do OCI, so the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And then at the very end, we'll do a very quick GCP demo on some resources out there on our GCP CIQ optimized Rocky Linux that we have up there.
I thought you referred to the Dave Cloud for a minute. You threw Dave out there.
Did I?
The Dave Cloud? No, just kidding.
My apologies if I did. There's a lot of clouds for a moment here.
There are a lot of clouds.
Storm going on at my window.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, so let me share what I've got here. Like I said, we're going to go over GCP, AWS, Azure, GitLab, Docker Hub, OCI, and then a quick just like GPU demo at the end. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and start with the GCP artifact registry. So just to show you what we're looking at here, I have pushed into this registry. Can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Fantastic. Okay.
At least I can.
Fantastic. Okay. So what we're looking at here is the GCP container registry interface. So this is this is the GCP artifact registry interface. So this is an artifact registry that we've created on GCP. It's called containers. And you can see I have, if I go back here, you can see the full list of them, but I don't exactly want to do that. So there's a whole bunch of other containers that are also stored in this registry, Docker containers and Apptainer SIFs together. So you can see I've got this Apptainer demo container that I've gone ahead and pushed here. If we go and look at this, we can see that this should be an ORAS image that gets pushed up there, but sometimes the tagging on it gets a little bit odd. But this is an ORAS type image that we have pushed up here.
We might have to time out at some point, maybe not right now, sorry, but at some point we might have to talk a little bit about what things like OCI and ORAS mean.
Dave, if we want to jump into that right now, that'd probably be a good time if we want to really quickly explain OCI and ORAS and that type of thing. Because a lot of these registries that we're using are based on kind of that concept. Just to preface the discussion a little bit, that we have OCI type images, and then we have ORAS, which is a way of using these Apptainer SIFs with OCI registries. But Dave, I'll let you explain that so I don't confuse things.
Sorry to interrupt. I should have jumped in sooner and said something. So, all right. So a few acronyms to be aware of. We've already talked about SIF, Singularity Image Format. SIF is an image. It's basically a file system image saved with some metadata in one file. OCI. OCI means the Open Container Initiative. And way back in the day, around 2015 or so, somewhere in there, Docker decided, the company Docker decided to start a consortium called the Open Container Initiative to set up a bunch of standards for how containers should be stored and run and all that kind of stuff. And they basically started the standard based on Docker. And so, so that's what the Open Container Initiative means, OCI. OCI standards cover the container format, the container runtime, and now most recently registries as well. So there's a standard for how you store containers online, and we're going to be talking a lot about OCI registries today. Oh, Rose has got her hand up.
So this explains why, like, more times than not, you're messing around with Apptainer and you see Docker. Right? When you
Right.
see like it's like a Docker pull or go get from Docker, or Docker Hub, or Docker something or other, and people are like, "Wait, if I'm using Apptainer, why does it say Docker?" And this is why.
Right. Way a long time ago, shortly after Apptainer became a thing in its previous incarnation, Singularity, one of the community members, and I'm going to give her a shout out because she's been, she really helped out quite a lot. Vanessa Socket said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we could download OCI containers directly from places like Docker Hub and run them in Apptainer, then Singularity?" And so she submitted a bunch of Python code that allowed us to do just that. And so that was like, hugely influential and kind of a big bang, and kind of like really made Apptainer take off, because now instead of like building all your own containers, you could just go get them. So fast forward. And so then I covered OCI a little bit and what that means. The last acronym I wanted to cover was ORAS. So fast forward a little bit. A bunch of people in the container community got together and said, wouldn't it be cool if we could use an OCI registry as storage, ORAS? And so wouldn't it be cool if we could just push random data, any kind of just a data blob up to an OCI registry? And some folks actually from Microsoft, talked to some people in the Singularity community and said, wouldn't that be cool if Singularity and now Apptainer supports that as a protocol that you can use to store SIF containers? So that hopefully loops it all together. So now it used to be that people would build their containers using Docker files, push them to some place like Docker Hub where they could get at them easily. And then they would pull them with Apptainer and transfer them from layers into a SIF at that point in time. Now with ORAS, it's possible, as long as the registry supports it, which almost all the registries do now, it's possible to just push your container directly up to an OCI registry as a SIF and take advantage of all the great things that SIF offers, which hopefully we'll be talking a little bit about later on. Okay, sorry. Level set terminology.
It's perfect. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. Exactly. So yeah, what we're going to be seeing here is leveraging all that tech that Dave just discussed in order to be able to store these SIFs in these cloud registries. So to switch back to my screen sharing screen here, we can examine this image. For whatever reason, when we look at this image in the artifact registry, it shows up as a Docker format. So I don't know if they're wrapping this as something like that on the other side, but this is a SIF that we've stored up here in the GCP artifact registry. You'll notice that we can get a pull tag to it with this, this, and this. So I'm going to go ahead and share a terminal really quickly, and I'll show you all how we can pull down the tag that we have here for this. You can see that we've tagged this stable, so we can imagine this is maybe like a stable release version of our application or something like that. So we'll go ahead. I'm managing the fact that I have to remotely log into like 5 different container registries here, and sometimes the credentials get a little munged. So bear with me if I have to drop off screen sharing for a second to set up a credential in the background. I think we should be good, but we'll see how it goes here.
Live demos first.
Always. Let's see here. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger.
There you go. A little more. Nice. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so we're here on the terminal. In order to go ahead and interact with this GCP registry, I have got to do a let's see, Apptainer remote login -u OAuth 2 access token. And we're going to paste in the name of this registry. So let me grab that really quickly. Full pull tag, and then I'll back a little bit. So when I do this, I'm going to, in another screen, just do a quick gcloud auth print access token in order to get just a temporary access token into this registry. I believe my authentication should already be set up, but I'll just do this just to show how the login works on the command line. So when we do Apptainer remote login, we have to provide -u, which gives us a username, and then we have to provide the registry here at the end. So this is the URI to it. You'll notice that we're using the ORAS spec. That means that we want Apptainer to treat this as a registry that we're going to put SIFs into. So we'll go ahead and do this, get our password token request, and I'll paste in my gcloud auth print access token. I'll get that token stored in there. If I want to go ahead and pull that container, I can go ahead and use this right here. So just referring directly to Apptainer pull, the URL that we got from the top of that. So just that CIQ SA containers, and then the name of the container that we put it into the registry as with the tag. So we can go ahead and run this. And it's all the same container that I've put all around these. So if I forget to do like an Apptainer cache clean between them and it says using cached ORAS image, that's just because it is detecting that it's got the same image coming down from that registry. But I will try to remember to Apptainer cache clean between each one of these so we can see a clean pull. So we'll go ahead and do this. And we'll see if this will start to download an ORAS image. This is pretty small, just like 100 megabytes or so. So we should see this finish pretty fast. But you see we get that indication that we're pulling down an ORAS image. We get that right there. This image is just a really simple Python type image. It's just what I built with this container.def here. So we should be able to go ahead and do an Apptainer shell, Apptainer demo of this, and then we can do our Python 3. So that's kind of the basic of the container that we're actually, or the basic idea of the container that we're pulling down here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that each time so it's not clobbering itself. What happens if we want to push a container up to GCP? We can do that just as easily. Just go over here, paste this in, and we're just doing Apptainer push and then the name of the container. And we're going to push that to the latest tag. So say we have a new version of our application that we want to push out for testing. We can tag that latest and go ahead and push and upload complete. So that finishes pretty fast. And when we go back to this page over here, we should now be able to see that we have a new tag on that image.
While you're pulling that up for us, I know some of our customers have some fairly large container images, and I'm sure that some of the container registries have limits on size, but Apptainer doesn't care about the size of the container, correct?
Can you say it one more time, Zane?
So I know we have some customers that have some fairly large containers, like several gig.
Mm-hmm.
There's no limitation or no size limitation on Apptainer. It doesn't care how big.
Nope, absolutely not. You can build essentially an arbitrarily large container out to the limits of the performance of your file system and the storage space that you have. There's, strategy there. You probably don't want to build, the mono container that's hundreds of gigabytes in size, because that becomes very unwieldy to move around versus the concept of containers, which is, to have, in a lot of cases, a single app just kept in a container. But yeah, it can do any size. When you build an Apptainer, if you're like building from an OCI image, it takes all the layers that you put into a Docker container, squashes them together into one file system with make squash fs, and then you just have this essentially squash fs image there that represents the rest of the container. So I've gone ahead and pushed this, unaware that pushing the same container is actually just going to retag it with the same tag. So you can see that as I've gone ahead and pushed that up, I've got now the latest tag applied there. But if there was a material difference between those two containers, we would see, like, for example, For example, another container that we have here that's also a SIF. We have a number of different versions here as things have been pulled, and then we just maintain a stable version of it. That's the latest one. So that's the Google Artifact Registry. You can see we can store SIFs there. We can move things around. We'll go ahead and switch to the next cloud that we're going to look at, which is the AWS ECR. So this is the Elastic Container Registry that AWS provides. So we'll go into here. So some of these places do these kind of their registry setup just a little bit differently, but I'll kind of explain what we're looking at here. So we're in our Amazon Elastic Container Registry. I've got my Apptainer demo container here, and you can see we've got the stable image tag applied there, just like we did in the previous one. You're going to see that we basically have that same thing across all of these clouds. We have in Azure a stable one, in Oracle we have a stable one, and then in GitLab we also have a stable one. But here in the ECR, you can see we have this artifact type other, which is just kind of indicating that it's not exactly a Docker container. It's something different. In this case, it's a SIF. So you can see that we've got one waiting there. I'll go back to the command line, and we will go ahead and do an Azure deal. Where's that? There we go. Or sorry, not Azure. I may have misspoken. An AWS deal. So in order to get in here, I'm going to just go ahead and do this right here. So just AWS ECR get login for the region, and then I'm just piping that into Apptainer. I need this right here. Oh no, there, I just didn't copy it. I also need, of course, the actual URL that we're going to. So there's that right there. So yeah, AWS ECR get login password, region, etc. That basically just gets you like a token that you can use to log into the ECR. We're going to pipe that through to Apptainer and just use password standard in option there, the username AWS. You can find the username that you're supposed to be using generally in like the pulling instructions and tagging instructions for the registry. So a lot of times that'll tell you there's like a standardized username. Like you saw with GCP, it was OAuth 2 access token. With AWS, it's AWS. With Azure, it's a bunch of zeros. So you'll kind of see that generally they have, something like that. So that's why in this case, we have that username. And then, like I said, I don't want to reveal this token. So I'm just going to use this password coming in from standard in. We'll go ahead and do this. And we, once again, get the token stored, confirming that we have a good login. I can go ahead and, like I did before, pull down this stable release. I've got, yeah, there we go. So I go ahead and pull down the stable release. There we go. So I should be able to pull down the stable from this. You'll see we get downloading ORAS image. I'm probably, let's see, we'll wait a moment. There we go. We can go back and go into this once again. 3. So that you can see we can pull that down from the AWS ECR there. We can also push a new tag. Like I said before, this might just cause kind of a duplication because I didn't realize that it's going to just do that tag on there. But if we do this Apptainer push container SIF like this, we can go ahead and that container up, which completes pretty fast. Once again, I think it's completing pretty fast because the container under the on a technical level of the hashes of it's the exact same container that I'm pushing up for latest that I'm pushing up for stable in this case. So you would see a little bit of some separation there, like I showed with GCP. And you'd also expect a little bit of upload time, but in this case, it's, I guess, kind of just recognizing that it's already there. So if we go back to the ECR, we'll be able to see that we've got, upon refresh, this image is now tagged latest and stable. So we can make changes to it there. So that's the AWS ECR. Let's see here.
Oh, Forrest, I got a quick question for you. So if you didn't clear your cache before pulling from a different registry, would it just use the container that's cached then?
I believe so, because I think it looks at, I think it when it pulls that down from the registry, it's going to take the hash of what it finds at the registry. It's going to take the hash of what's in the cache. In this case, I don't think the registries would be doing anything to alter it at all. So I think, yeah, you're going to get that. But this next time, I won't clear it, and we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure it should just cache. Yeah, so that is the AWS ECR. I will move over to my next one, which is Azure. So here in Azure, we can create container registries. We have our Azure Apptainer demo one. There's a lot of information inside of this. We're looking at repositories, which are the actual containers that have been pushed up to this. So you can see we have, once again, a stable tag here. I can go ahead and pull this down once we switch over to the command line. All right, so here we are. I'm going to grab the token in this case comes out with a little bit of extraneous information, so I have to copy it from another window. So give me just a moment. Copy that. So in order to get into this registry, we are going to do this right here. So you can see Apptainer remote login, username, a bunch of zeros, and then this Azure Apptainer demo.azurecr.io. We can go ahead and copy in the token. And we have our token successful message, meaning we've logged in. Once in here, we can go ahead and pull down that go ahead and pull this down. So I think I'm going to have to container demo stable. And so then when I go ahead and do this, see if we can pull this down. And it does use the cache SIF image. So there we go. So yeah, once again, as usual, that's the same image that we've had there. And then if we want to go ahead and push, I wish I had a different container right handy to push up to this so that we could see what it looks like when it's not just pushing the same thing. But
if you build a new container from the container that you have, it will get a new. It won't be the same container because it'll have timestamps saved into the Squash FS file system which is in the SIF.
So like from, or like what's the bootstrap method on that?
So you would just do, you could type the command completely at the command line, just build. So Apptainer build the name of the new container and then the name of the old container, actually the full path to the old container.
Cool. All right, let's give this a try. So if we want to go ahead and push this latest version that we've just created of our application, we can go ahead and do Apptainer push. We'll do Apptainer container-2.sif. And then once we go ahead and do this, this will actually take a second to upload because it's not just using the cached one, but we'll see it appear there as, I believe, a new image in Azure. In kind of the same way that I showed there with GCP, how we have that different tag. From here on out, I'll just use this container 2.1 so we can see that. I apologize for not just doing that from the start. It's always something to get you at the demo. So we might be waiting a second. This is a 119 megabyte image, and I think I'm on a 3.7.
While we're waiting for that, one of the things that you're highlighting, which I think is really cool, is that it's not cool that this is the case, but it's cool that you're highlighting it. Each one of these registries is a little bit different. It's worth pointing out too that even as far as like the way that each one of the registries implements like OCI. So OCI is a standard, but it doesn't mean that everybody has to follow that standard, right? So each registry kind of puts their own little flavor a little bit on OCI and might not implement all the different standards that are associated with that, or might do so to differing degrees. And then when you get into ORAS, I mean, you're kind of like, things are a little bit different too, as far as like what's implemented and what's supported and what's not.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the somewhat comical kind of like origin story of ORAS that people were doing like kind of the like Docker Hub as a database type thing, stuffing arbitrary data into like the layers of containers and then storing them out on registries and that type of thing?
It could be, and I think that so I don't know exactly. I wasn't around for the very start of ORAS. I was only around when folks started to come to us and ask us to make ORAS like a first class client within Singularity. But I do know that for a while ORAS was like explicitly not supported by some registries, because they didn't want people just using it as a backup and putting all their pictures of their cats up there and stuff. So
Got to back stuff up somewhere, Dave. Come on.
So I'm pretty sure, just to demonstrate really quickly, that I think my credentials are cached, but we'll find out here in probably about 20 seconds if this pings back unauthorized or if this actually uploads. You'll notice that I've just gone back to that the AWS ECR, and I'm just uploading that container 2 that we just had. So we'll give that a minute or so. And I think, we're going to start to be up on time, so we're going to move it along a little bit more after this one, I think.
While we're waiting for that, are you guys... Oh, of course, it finishes right as I start talking.
Sorry, Zane. Here we go. We're back into it. What were you...
Quick, while you're doing that, are you guys seeing people automate this type of build and push and pull to get it in cache? Is that something people are automating, or are you seeing people do this kind of real time like you're doing it now?
Oh, absolutely. People are automating this. This is, you can do the same type of CI/CD goodness that you can do with Docker entirely with Apptainer. This is entirely a process that you could have automatically building, pushing, testing, deploying. You could build those same type of pipelines with Apptainer in this case. It's convenient to manually upload it here.
I was going to say, Brian, go.
Yeah, Brian.
Yes, this has been something I have been working on, but still trying to figure it out. Like at CIQ, we work with a bunch of different scientific software. So getting all of these different tools to build at scale and in a cost-efficient way is a little bit challenging. But look forward to a future webinar where we can demo some of this type of stuff.
Oh, very nice, Brian. Thank you.
Awesome. So I went ahead and let's see, I did pull, I did push. Okay, good. We'll go back to my menu here really quickly, and I will just show you that here in Azure, we have our latest and stable containers now separated because we rebuilt that container. And if we go to the ECR, we also see that we have 2 different tags in there now. So you can see how different images will indeed engage different tags, just as you would expect. The next one that we're going to look over is GitLab. GitLab is a really common kind of DevOps type platform. Where is this window at? There we go. You can see that I've got my GitLab containers repo here. It's got a container registry inside of it. I have my Apptainer demo container here with my stable tag. If I want to go ahead and jump into this, it's this one right here, isn't it? Yep, there we go. So for this one right here, I'm doing just the same remote login. I'm also pasting an access token that I got in from here. When I say I'm pasting an access token in this case, I go generate that from the GitLab website. You go generate a personal access token with the read registry capabilities. You need the write registry capability in order to push up to it. But we'll go ahead and do this. We'll find my note with the token, paste that in, and we've got a successful login. I can go ahead and Apptainer pull that same, there we go, cache SIF image again that we had out of that. And then I can go ahead and, of course, if I would like to, something up to this. So there we go. Oh, whoops. Dave, while we're waiting for this one to upload, that's the GitLab part of it. Do you want to jump into the Docker Hub part of it?
Sure, absolutely. So I wanted to highlight too. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, it's great that you can push native SIF files up to these registries, but why would you do that? Why would you care? So I want to highlight some of the advantages or some of the things that SIF gives you, especially when you're working with Apptainer instead of working with something like Docker or a Podman or whatever, and then show how you kind of you get those advantages of working with a SIF if you are able to push the SIF directly and use it directly throughout the life cycle of the container. So last night in putting this together, I went ahead and I created a repo up on good old Docker Hub called Rocky Linux. And I've been meaning to do this for a long time and create kind of a bunch of different Rocky containers. And so it was good that I was able to do this. There already is a repo called Rocky Linux up there, which is the official repo, but those are all OCI images. And so these are all SIF images. Okay, so we've got, I tagged 4 different images. The two of them are the same. So 9.2 and 9 are basically the same. 8.8 and 8 are the same. But let me go ahead and show you really quickly how I created these. All right. So the 9.2 one I created here with this Rocky Linux 9.2 dev file. So if you look here, I'm going to start talking about software supply chain and knowing where your software comes from and verifying that it's exactly the same software that you think it is when you get it. So in this case, normally when you start and build a container from a source, you usually build it from another container. What you can see here is I'm actually building from the upstream mirrors. So I'm skipping the whole grab a container from, Docker Hub or Harbor or Quay.io or whatever, step entirely. And I'm just building directly from the mirrors that you would normally build your operating system from, right? So that's kind of cool because it means that there's less people that you have to trust basically when you create this container. You can be more sure of the contents of it. Okay, so I built another one here called Rocky Linux 9.1.sif. And I haven't pushed that up to the registry yet. So let me go ahead. I want to push that up to the registry. But once it goes up there, I'm going to want to download it again later. And when I download it again later, I want to make sure that I actually get the same container that I pushed up there. Okay. So first off, let me just show you. So this 9.1.def. This one I had to use a slightly different URL because that's in the vault now. That's not in the public repos. So you have to, these are, when you're building from the upstream mirrors, it's a little bit more difficult. But what I'm going to do to make sure that this is the same image, when I pull it later, let me just kind of go ahead and demonstrate. So if I do Apptainer pull ORAS. If I pull the 9.2 image that I've already created as an ORAS, it's going to give me the cache one, but that's fine in the interest of time. If I've got that one here, I can do a verify. And this works because I've signed this image. And not only can I verify this image, and I know that the fingerprint is supposed to be, this fingerprint. By the way, I actually have this fingerprint also on the repo. So if you wanted to verify this image, you could do so too. And not only can I verify this image, but anybody can verify that this is the image that I created because the public key material is up in a public place and Apptainer will automatically download it for you when you try to verify. So that's something that you guys can do on your own time is try to pull these images and verify them. If I try to verify the one that I just created for 9.1 though, that's not going to work because I haven't signed it. So let me go ahead and sign it. And I have to enter my passphrase. Look. Okay.
I saw it.
And sorry.
I saw it.
Oh, okay. My bad. That'd actually be really bad if you saw that, because this is like my production key that I use for like all my important stuff. So
I
this
did not
this
see it.
this repo, I actually think that this is, like something that people might use. So I'm going to go ahead and push now. This you can see that I already tried to do that once. I'm going to go ahead and push this to Rocky 9.1. And as soon as that gets done here, we should be able to refresh. And now we've got the 9.1 tag. So that's pretty cool. And so not only can you verify, just to like complete this, so there's two more things I want to talk about. Okay, so not only can you verify the image just at the command line like this, but another thing that you can do, let's say I wanted to build from this image. And once again, we're talking software supply chain. So I want to make sure that what ends up in the image that I build is exactly what I think is in the image. And it's not going to be tampered with or messed around by some malicious entity. Well, what you can do when you now build, so it's cumbersome to build from mirrors all the time. So I can take advantage of the convenience of building directly from Docker Hub, but I can use the ORAS protocol to build directly from a SIF file. And oh, by the way, when it comes in, I can check that the fingerprint is that fingerprint that I expect it to be. So I can perform a verification step right here at build time. And then if this fingerprint is not the same, then this will bomb out and it won't work. Does that make sense? I'm just going to talk about it and not show it right now because I think we're a little over time. And just one more advantage that working with SIF gives you over working with Docker Hub or OCI images when you're specifically when you're in Apptainer. So let's say I wanted to download kind of like the famous LOLCal container because I wanted to know how it was originally built. Well, if I did that, you'd think I could use something like Apptainer inspect def file lolcal. But if I do that, so that's supposed to give me the definition file that was used to build this. But since I pulled this from Docker Hub, the actual definition is just that I pulled it from Docker Hub. It created this from layers that were up on Docker Hub. So that was the build. And so that doesn't give me any information at all. Instead, though, if I do a pull, so I have this same image saved as a SIF with the tag SIF here. So if I pull that same image as a SIF file, now I can do my inspect. Like so, and it's actually going to give me the definition file that was originally used. So you just get more information, and you've also got that software supply chain aspect that I was talking about. So, just to kind of like zoom out and summarize what I'm trying to say there, when you're working with Apptainer, so there's advantages to like building as OCI containers and using those. Like if you're going to be using both Docker or Podman or something like that and Apptainer, that's probably the route you want to go. But if you're working with Apptainer, now that OCI registries support Apptainer, you get a lot of benefits by just actually working with SIF files and using them as is. And some of those benefits, like, software supply chain and knowing where your software is coming from that's not tampered with, are actually, really kind of important security features.
Dave.
Cool. Thank you, Dave. That was fascinating. Very much.
And it's even like better too, because when you're talking about it, you can tell like how excited that you are about it, that like this didn't always exist. Right?
Yeah. And it like as recently as just like 6 or 8 months ago, Docker Hub in particular would not let you upload SIF files. So it's only been within like, certainly within the last year that Docker Hub even allows you to use the ORAS protocol to upload SIF files. So it's pretty cool. It's new stuff.
Yeah. It's really cool. Well, thank you for all the people that were involved in making that happen. And it seems like it's so exciting what's happening in the world of containers. And yet, like, as we're looking at what we have and where we're going and all the things that we can do with them, it's even more exciting. And so I definitely want you guys to stay tuned as the weeks go by, because we're going to continue to share with you and show you and demo for you and encourage you to play around with this kind of software and show you how it can improve your compute resources and your abilities, and also the way in which you, as you know, if there's admins watching, how you can encourage the people that you are, like, you're supporting the systems, but like all the people that are then using the system, right? It makes it a lot easier for them to be able to access those resources too, without you having to do everything for them, right? Which is really cool. So I know we are closing out here. Is there any final thoughts that you wanted to add in here? We'll start with Brian.
No final thoughts. Apptainer is great. Yeah.
That was the perfect final thought. Apptainer's great. Yeah. Awesome. Forrest, do you have a final thought?
If I may have a final screen share, just
yes,
30
sorry.
seconds. So I know we're up on time, so I won't dive too deep into the rest of this stuff, but I do just want to point out really quickly. If we're back over here on GitLab, we have that latest and stable container there. This whole type of thing, and of course it's going to want me to log in. This whole thing also works up on the Oracle Cloud. You can use the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Container Registry there to store these types of things as well. You're only going to see the stable one in there, but you can see here that much like everything else we had, we've got that stable thing there. You can log into one of these with just one of the standard auth tokens that you can make through OCI. This one was the one with the most complicated login, but we are up on time, so I suppose we will skip.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I soaked up all the time there talking about
No worries.
advantages of SIF.
No, it's totally awesome. Forrest, just like, because we were talking about time and how these things didn't always exist. What is like the most exciting thing about being able to have containers up in these different cloud environments?
Just what we're seeing here, the massive extensibility of being able to take the architecture that you've built and the systems and things that you've built, that you've put tons of effort into, and that instead of having to move around and rebuild per these different clouds or change the technology that you already have, et cetera, into a different format, Apptainer works for all of the same use cases that we would expect to see out of a cloud container solution. So there's nothing that we're essentially limited by here. So it's very cool to see Apptainer working in the cloud. That basically concludes Cloud Day. You can also, I was going to pull down an image onto a GCP enabled Rocky Linux instance just so that you can pull and run out of that type of thing. But I'll leave that as an exercise to the reader to deploy that type of AI and get that architecture running.
Maybe we could put together, since everybody should know this. So Cloud Day was Forrest's idea, and Forrest basically put all this together. Maybe we could like put together a blog post or something with, since we already have the commands and stuff, and like a companion to this, so that we get all that information out there.
Fantastic idea. Keep an eye out for that, everyone. That'll be coming out soon. Thank you all for attending Cloud Day.
Yay! Yes, thank you, everybody. Make sure that you like and subscribe, so that you can get notifications of all the different things that we are pushing out to you. And we'll be back here the same time, same place, CIQ in the house. I do want to give you a moment, Zane, dude. You want to pop in and say hey? And I feel like I've taken over.
No, I appreciate it. I got pulled into like 3 different things all at the same time. So,
yeah.
It's exciting.
Never a dull moment, right? Never a dull moment here. Yeah, awesome.
I appreciate you guys joining again. It's always fun to see you. I feel like I don't get to spend enough time with you guys anymore, so I love it when you're on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome.
Everyone.
All right, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Later.